Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're checking out Zeal Ginjoka from NIJISANJI English with Medusa's Masquerade. This was a suggestion from one of you, and I'm excited to get into it. So let's hit play in 3, 2, 1, play.
If I could have your attention, please. There's some news to relay, and I'd like to do it
Okay.
face to face. There's been an accident, quite the scene.
Ooh,
All
I like how you said
involved are
that.
okay, but those scars will never go away. Oh boy, that poor boy, he will never ever be the same.
Okay, I like how that's very interesting. Usually when we have those there's like vocal sing-alongs, just kind of not really lyrical, but just open, hey, yeah, yeah. Usually we have a lot of effect on those, especially with large impact in the instrumentation with that like high, like heavy bass tonality, right? Um, it's very interesting to have that done clean.
Will never go away. Oh boy, that poor boy, he will never ever be the same.
Okay, so we actually do have that clean vocal, and then we have another vocal mirroring those little projections there under that clean vocal, and that one has the vocal effect you would expect, having it more synthesized. But um, but I like how we actually have that clean. It's kind of like a aesthetic choice, right? Because some people really don't like how it can feel a little detached from the instrumentation, but some people really like having that clarity in the vocal the vocal expression of his voice, right? And I think that's a good choice, especially for if this is like, a new talent in Nijisanji trying to show off his voice, show off what he can do. I think it makes sense to want more clean vocals in the mix.
He will never ever be the same. In time, no, in time, he'll
Nice.
be absolutely fine. Doesn't matter what you say, 'cause the
Okay.
flavor's all the same. It's all bitter like the venom of a snake.
I
But
like
okay,
that.
you're remorseful. It'll carry
Hmm.
stones of vitriol. When our eyes
Okay.
meet at Medusa's masquerade.
Nice. I like that.
With the venom of a
Ooh.
snake.
I like how he kind of his voice kind of like rebounded for a second projection there. Let me go back a little more.
With the venom of
Right
a
there.
snake.
Okay. Hmm.
Oh, can you feel the poison slithering down your throat?
Ooh, nice. I really like how we played with the bass tonalities there. You can notice on the transition we kind of pulled out, so it was mainly treble tones that were really in the spotlight. We didn't really have a big bass impact that you would kind of expect with how the instrumentation has been so far on that transition. But then we came in with the vocals there, and that really fills up that spot. See right there how the bass just kind of pulls out and lets those treble tones take over.
Oh, can you feel the poison slithering down your throat?
Hmm.
Oh,
Nice. And we introduce, so we have this this balance in the mix where we pull out those bass tones, so we have that treble transition, then we come in with the main vocal and that supporting bass vocal, but it's a little bit quiet to make room for that bass that then comes in as we amplify the intensity of this segment of the song here.
slithering down your throat. Oh, can you hear the voices begging you not to go?
Mm.
Well, hey, oh boy, that poor boy, will we ever see his face? In time, no, in
Okay.
time, everything will come to light.
Hmm. Nice. Little dissonance there. Nice.
Doesn't
Hmm.
matter what you say, cause the flavor's all the same. It's all bitter like the venom of a snake.
A lot of
With the
bass
energy of
intensity.
a much full, it all carries tons of petrol. And it hits me like a smack to the face.
Hmm. Okay. All right. That was Medusa's Masquerade. So that was an interesting song. It's a very short song. We're less than 2.5 minutes here, and I think this was a very efficient vocal showcase. We got to have some different demeanors with his voice. Not only did we have that more like poppy intensity, but we also had the more emotional rolling, on this segment here when the with the focus on the mix that I had mentioned earlier. I do think that this mix feels just a little bit, and this is a um just a nitpick, a criticism that I do think the mix feels just slightly underdeveloped in the sense that there's a lot of room for more variety, even I think in this short time span. Though I do think the short amount of time that the song has makes it gives it more room for not having as much variation. But I do think that at least I'm gonna go back and listen to it a second time. I want to hear this segment right here, and compare it to the last part and just see if I can notice any large changes in the mix.
Scars will never go away. Oh, yeah. Oh boy, that poor boy, he will never ever be the same. Oh, yeah. In time, no, in time, he'll be absolutely fine.
All right, so now let's go back and check the ending.
You're not to go. Well, hey, oh, yeah. Oh boy, that poor boy, will we ever see his face? Oh, yeah. In time, no, in time, everything will come to light.
Yeah, I think we could definitely have some more room for variation, especially since even though that isn't our ending segment, I do think that the development should at least be a little more present, right? So I think having just at least one more instrumental track or something just to add this extra flavor of variation would add to kind of like the development of the story that's being presented, right? So we have this this kind of first half of the song, I'd say up to here, is kind of we have this introduction of how we're approaching the song, right? What the song is, how we're organizing the musicality of it all, and then our we have this segment here, which is beautiful. I love how we switched it up here. We played around with the mix. That was excellent. But when we re-attack the segment that we've already introduced before, I think this is our chance to show. And I mean, this is in terms of mainly music production. I don't think he necessarily needed to do too much with his like a voice when he's recording the tracks here, but I think mainly in terms of producing the music, it would have been super cool if we had like another added instrumental track that maybe referenced the melody that we had here.
Slithering down your throat. Oh, can you hear the voices begging you not to go?
So if we had like that referenced, and then we could, obviously we'd have to match the tempo switch, but
Oh, yeah.
right here, I do think that having this just kind of be the same thing as before, it does make the song feel a little more samey when you listen to it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because you want the song to be catchy, right? But I do think that, especially for a vocal showcase and wanting to show off your voice, I don't think it would have hurt at all to add some more to the instrumentation. But obviously, there are things like, time constraints, budget constraints, and anything could limit that. And I think overall, this song was a complete package, completely. Like I do think it could be longer. And if it was longer, if we did have maybe like a 3 to 4 minute song here, I think we could have kept this relatively the same and then had a third repetition of those verses there, and we could then develop it with another track. But this is just like it's kind of a minor criticism. It isn't really like a major problem with the song or anything. Overall, the song was really great. I do really like how he's singing here. I do think that it wouldn't necessarily hurt to add a little bit more dynamics into the vocal tracks, but I don't mind having it like this, especially since we had a lot of dynamics in the supporting vocals. We had a lot of those like underlying bass vocals, and we had vocals that were matching with kind of this like a synthetic synthesizer tonality, and it was even like wavering and chopping up. I believe it was right around here,
News to relay, and I'd like to do it face to face. There's been
maybe a
an
bit after this. I think it might have been just this verse here.
oh boy, that poor boy, he will never ever be the same.
Yeah, you can hear that bass vocal is kind of wavering a tiny bit to kind of simulate a synthesizer. And I think that was a very, very cool choice in the mix. I just think that, maybe if they had a little more time or something, they could have rounded out the mix a little more and added in a little bit more mix variation. But for like a 2.5 minute song vocal showcase introducing a talent here for Niji Sanji, I think this was a really awesome introduction. I really really love how he sang this part here with the switch up.
Oh, can you feel the poison slithering down your throat? Oh, can you hear the voices begging you not to go? Well, hey,
I love even that transition there, where he kind of like pulls up, he makes it a little bit breathy, and he kind of tightens his throat there on the transition. It really adds to that like emotional aspect of the vocal track. Um, but I think in terms of music production, just a little bit more variety would help the song also feel more catchy. It would give it that moment where it feels like you've had all this build up and you get this big payoff, right? And even not necessarily that, but more so having that development throughout the song, so it's not like, oh, we're doing this again. It's, oh, this is developing and changing, and this is how the song is growing as I listen through it. But that's not necessarily what every song is trying to do, right? And I think this was a relatively simple like hook here. Um, but that's okay. I think that's perfectly fine. I think the vocalist did an amazing job. Zeal did an awesome job of just showing off what his voice can do, and I think the production team also did a great job as well. Um, but yeah, I do think the song, yeah, and I might be repeating myself a little bit here, but I do think the song would benefit a lot more from just like one more minute, just one more minute to develop a bit more. And I think that would also add to the catchiness of it, right? Because that'll also help it get stuck in your head even on just the first listen. While not necessarily being repetitive, you don't want it to be too repetitive, right? And I think this is just me saying this theoretically, but I think that might be why the song was shortened down, because there might not have been time to develop um, more tracks to support the verses that we had, and it would be a lot more work, right, to originally write a new segment to add on. So I think that might be why the song is a bit shorter than like 3 or 4 minutes that you might expect from an original. But aside from that, I think this it was all right. So we're gonna go ahead and do a second listen of the song, and I'm gonna try to pause a little bit more and comment on things I notice.
if I could have your attention, please. There's some news to relay, and I'd like to do it face to face. There's been an accident, quite the scene. All involved.
Yeah, so I like that he kind of he introduces it his vocals a bit more nasal. He's kind of pulling up in his chest, I feel, and he's tightening up when he's singing there.
Like to do it face to face. There's been an accident, quite the scene.
And also on like when he says an accident, he like pauses in the middle and like breathes out, and because normally you would kind of expect it to be an accident and then you would separate there on the comma, but we're separating in the middle of the word and kind of playing around with the lyrics to suit how we want the song to sound there.
An accident, quite the scene. All involved are okay, but those scars will never go away.
Mm. One thing I think the song has a lot of impact. It has a lot of bass impact, and I think that pulls away from that transition there a little bit. I think this transition here would have hit really hard if we just had one more standout track or something to it really highlights the segmentation of that, because on one hand it is very smooth, right? But because we want that new segment to be something that hooks and that people really latch onto, I would assume, given that that's the part of the song that we highlight later. um I would expect there to be a little bit more highlight on that transition into that segment there.
But those scars will never go away.
And I think we do have that because you can hear that percussive. I believe there's like a cymbal, or it could be like a synth dissension that like a crescendo there, but it's um it's very soft in the mix. I would expect it to be not as soft in the demeanor of that synth there, but also just not as quiet as well. And you can actually hear there's a treble track there. There's a treble melody track that's very, very quiet in the mix. I don't really hear it very much, but if we had like just like a MIDI flute or something to highlight that treble based melody there, I think I think the song would be 10 times more full in terms of the spectrum it covers in the mix, in terms of tonality. I think just the equalization of the mix would be more balanced, I feel. Which that isn't necessarily what everyone wants. A lot of people do like that aesthetic of very heavy bass. But I do think it would be a lot more balanced and a lot more melodic if we just raise the volume of that, and also maybe for that second segment of this part right here, if we had that like another supporting treble melody like a flute, or probably not a traditional flute, probably more like a synthetic or a synthesizer or keyboard or something, to match that treble melody there.
But those scars will never go away. Oh boy, that poor boy, he will never ever be the same. In time, no, in time, he'll be absolutely fine. Doesn't matter what you say, 'cause the flavor's all the same.
Yeah, it's interesting because we also have those highlighted. I think those are like some emulated brass is what it sounds like to me, like a keyboard or something. I think that would it's just those highlights, those that instrumentation that adds more flavor to the mix. It's there. On my first listen, I had kind of I could hear it, but I wasn't really being drawn to it. But on the second listen, I'm hearing all these elements that feel like they're there, but I think they just need to be louder in the mix. They need to be a little more present. And I understand wanting to keep the vocals, in the spotlight, especially for a VTuber talent, because this is, showcasing him. But I really think the song as a whole would benefit from having those flavor elements, that instrumentation, those treble based tracks, the supporting melodies, having those just a little bit louder, just a little bit more present, will really, really balance out the mix. At least in my opinion, that's what I feel would really make the song shine more.
Doesn't matter what you say, 'cause the flavor's all the same. It's all bitter like the venom of a snake. Whether pity or remorseful, it all carries tones of vitriol. When it rides me
Yeah, see here we have these like brass tones that I feel like, you know, they really play well to the song, but I do think that like emphasizing that that introduction of it on that chorus there, it would really really benefit the song if we just played more into that, I feel.
Oh, can you feel the
This is my favorite part. I
poison
really like this.
slithering down your throat? Oh, can
That's
you
beautiful.
hear the voices begging you not to go? Well, hey, yeah,
Like right there, I think this part right that entire just like bridge section. It's like that's the best part of the song to me. I absolutely love how he sounds there, how the mix just feels like it feels almost like there was a different producer on that part because it feels so much more mix aware to me because we have playing around with those steps in the mix where to the point where it almost feels like you know this is the highlight of the song to me um which you know that's not an issue that's not a bad thing but I just feel like having that attention to the mix in the chorus and in that supporting verse there that's kind of like our leading building melody that sorry I can't sing but that part right there I really think um it would benefit a lot from just having that same level of mix attention there.
oh, can you feel the poison slithering down your
I mean,
throat?
you can even hear the piano there. It has its EQ adjusted to highlight the bass that's coming in. You can tell that we're having those lower tones of the piano are cut out in the equalization there, and just to highlight that intro for the that beautiful tone on the bass.
Slithering down your throat. Oh, can you hear the voices begging you not to go? Well, hey, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, oh boy, that poor boy. Will we ever see his face? Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, in time.
I will say I really like the piano here. I really do enjoy that piano, but I think we can develop it a little bit more, I think. Just a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, 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 in time, no, in time, everything will come to light.
Mm,
Doesn't
nice.
matter what you say, cause the flavor's all the same. It's all bitter like the venom of a snake. But the pity or remorseful, it all carries tones of control. And it hits me like a smack to the face.
Hmm. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, you know I know I'm kind of nitpicking the song a little bit and critiquing it a lot, but I really really think this is an awesome song, and that's kind of the reason why I'm getting so caught up on all these little, you know, it's personal preference nitpicks here, but I really really do enjoy the song, but I think that's the reason why I feel so you know I feel so persuaded to nitpick at it. On that like transition right here. It sounds like he's just belting that in his chest voice. I think you know that's fine, but I think it would have been nice to kind of hear a little bit more of his head voice as well in the song.
Doesn't matter what you say, cause the flavor's all.
Like see like imagine this segment here, this chorus here, but now imagine if we had we still had this main vocal track, but we had a supporting like head voice, more a little bit like falsetto almost. You know, obviously, you know, he has his vocal range, but if we had a more of like a breathy head voice, it doesn't have to be like on the same level in the mix as this main vocal, but if we just had that supporting for this final chorus. I just think it's little things like that that would really make it shine. And obviously, you can't keep hounding on a song for every single thing that they didn't do, right? But I really do think that when you have a song that's so compact, you have less than 2.5 minutes to showcase what you can do, what you're defining your character that you're presenting as this is your original song for a new talent, right? So I really think that having that much flavor is a it's a preferable thing to really send everything you can into that one package, right? But at the end of the day, it is personal preference and everything. I am nitpicking, and I know I'm nitpicking. I still enjoy the song as a whole, and I really, really do enjoy it. I did enjoy like even all the things I'm nitpicking as well. The tracks are still fine without that. Um, but yeah, I do think that having like a more treble based vocal section here, having maybe like head voice, a little more falsetto, supporting that main vocal, because we hear a lot of bass support, and I think that the song does an amazing job of supporting the midtones with like parallels in the bass section of the tonality there. The song does a stellar job at that. But I think the treble tones are just a little bit neglected, just a tiny bit. Just having a little bit more. I know the piano does make up for some of that, but I think having just a little more flavor in those treble tones with some vocal tracks would really benefit the song as a whole. Um, but that, like I said, it's all personal preference. But yeah, thank you very much for recommending that I check this out. I really, really did enjoy this. I did not plan to make this video as long as it was, but I really did enjoy the song, and that's what led me to nitpick so much. But that's what a reaction is, right? It's giving my opinion on everything that I hear. So yeah, this was a really, really awesome song. I'm excited to hear more from this guy. He did an awesome job here, and yeah, I hope to hear more from him. So yeah, thank you so much for recommending this, and as always, feel free to recommend more things for me to check out in the comments below. Aside from that, I will see you all next time. Thank you so much.